All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us for this special collaboration between the Midwest Writing Center and Iowa City Poetry and this reading of the seminal work, Midwinter Day by Bernadette Mayer. We're doing this to support her and her family and all the good works that she has done, continues to do, will do kind of forever, because this work lives in the world forever and just continues to inspire and grow and be transformative for so many people who have come across it. So thank you for joining us. My name is Ryan Collins. I'm the executive director of the Midwest Writing Center. We'll be joined momentarily by Lisa Roberts from Iowa City Poetry, and then we'll get into the readings, which is why we're here. Just really quickly, the Midwest Writing Center is the only literary arts organization in the Quad Cities. We do all kinds of literary arts programming, publishing, readings, workshops, everything you can think of, and stuff like this, which we're very happy to do. For one, I've been teaching workshops, I think, for going on 20 years. And ever since I first came across Bernadette Mayer and her work, I've been sharing it with everybody that I can. Pretty much every workshop that I teach, the Young Emerging Writers program that we've run for 16 years, the first reading, the first thing I give to anybody in my classes is either the complete list of experiments or a shortened list of Bernadette Mayer's experiments that you can find at the UPenn website. It is the antidote for writer's block. It's why I don't really believe that's a thing. So just that one list alone, forget about all of her works and everything that she's done. That one list is just such a gift and such a treasure, and just sort of like infinite poems, infinite inspiration. And so we're really thrilled to partner with Iowa City Poetry and do what we can tonight. And this book, I mean, this is one of the books that I remember. I feel like we all have books that we remember the first time we read them. They're sort of, they hold that special place. And this book was certainly that for me. I had read a lot of her other work, but I remember the first time when I was in graduate school in 2004 in Chicago, reading this book, not too far removed. I think I read it in late November. So it was kind of coming up on that, and it has just stayed with me. And I'm just so grateful for Bernadette Mayer, for her work, for everybody participating in this. Please do support. We'll be sharing the link throughout where you can support directly to Bernadette Mayer. One other thing I want to shout out really, really quickly before we get on. Make sure I got the right information. There's also a really fantastic book that just came out or is about to drop called Midwinter Constellation, which was edited by Becca Claver, who is amazing. It's got some of the, just the best poets working in America, just 31 really incredible poets who on the 40th anniversary of the writing of Midwinter Day got together, collaborated, and made this incredible volume. It looks amazing. I can't wait to get it. So we'll throw the link up there for that too. All the proceeds from the sales of that book will go to Bernadette Mayer as well. So you can, buy the books, buy that book, support directly. And thank you for being here. And I'll rejoin in a little bit. I'm going to kick it over to Lisa now. So Lisa, take it away. Thank you.
Hey, Ryan. Hello, everybody. Happy Midwinter Day. I am so happy that Sarah invited me and Iowa City Poetry to go host this event. It's important to me to be able to kind of look to a founding mother of literature and poetry and really celebrate her the way we do all of our founding fathers in literature. I direct Iowa City Poetry, and we're a small nonprofit that we're dedicated to building community through a share love of poetry. We host readings and workshops and what else? A poetry library, also some citywide events now in an effort to share as many of the resources in our area with poets of all ages, incomes, identities, and experience levels. So I'm really excited to be here for this. Thank you, Sarah and Ryan, for inviting us to work together. One reason I love Bernadette Mayer is that she answers so many central questions not only for all writers, but for women writers. You know, there's this story. Maggie Nelson has a really great book where she talks about Mayer, and the book's called Women, the New York School, and Other True Abstractions. And we love Maggie Nelson, right? And she tells this story about Jory Graham and something Jory Graham said. So at a tribute to Plath in the New York Public Library in 1997, Jory Graham told of the crisis she experienced upon first becoming pregnant. The crisis of not knowing whether becoming a mother could be compatible with being a poet. When Graham thought about the female poets she admired most, Dickinson, Bishop, and Plath, she was distressed to realize that they were respectively a lifelong recluse, a lesbian without children. You could call Dickinson a lesbian as well. A mother who committed suicide with her two children sleeping nearby. Not a wonderful prognosis, Graham joked. And so, you know, she didn't really reconcile that until she lived through it. And so one of the things that I love about Mayer and Midwinter Day is that for me, this book sort of helps answer that question. And I wish I'd found it sooner when I really needed it. You know, how do we reconcile writing and being a poet and having children and a family? What do we do when we don't have a room of our own because it's so cluttered with galoshes and diaper pails? Well, you know, we dig down deep into the room of our own minds, and, you know, we explore all those different rooms of our dreams and create, you know, glorious poetry out of the surreal details. What do? We look around all the rooms of our house. You know, we wake up and we look around the rooms and we describe in meticulous and equalizing detail all the junk in the room, all the stuff, right? And so we've got the closet doors hung with jackets, a woman by Matisse in yellow and blue, a potty chair, a diaper pail full of cloth diapers. Then after that, you throw the kids into the stroller and you start walking through town. And then again, you create a poem out of all the names of all the stores along the path where you're traveling. So, you know, what do we do when we don't have a room of our own? We make every room our own by turning it into the raw stuff of poetry. So I love Mayer's book, and this book in particular, because that's what it is, all of this real detail. So thanks so much. And let me turn things over to one of our very first readers, and Sarah will introduce that person. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Ryan. That was so beautiful. My name is Sarah. I work with Midwest Writing Center. I'm so delighted to be part of this event, to be part of this history of literature. And more importantly, I am honored to know and delighted to introduce to you Emily Kingery, who is a poet and professor in Davenport, has a lot of really beautiful work of her own, original work, of course, under her belt, and will be paying tribute. If you want to read along, I threw a link in the chat, if you're on the Facebook chat, to a site where you can read along with us. Emily Kingery, please begin our Midwinter Day.
All right, thanks, Sarah. And thanks to the Midwest Writing Center and Iowa City for doing this collaborative event. I'm really excited to be a part of it and to kick things off. This has been my first experience reading this book. And so I'm really excited to see, I feel like it invites a lot of different emphases in a reading. And so I think it'll be kind of cool to see how everybody does their section that they'll be reading. And I'll be reading, as I think Sarah pointed out, the first few pages of the book. So pages 1 through about midway through page 6. So I'll go ahead and start. Stately you came to town in my opening dream. Lately you've been showing up a lot. I saw clearly you were staying in the mirror with me. You walk in, the hills are green. I keep you warm. Placed in this cold country in a town of mountains, replaced from that balmier city of yours near the sea. Now it's your turn to fall down from the love of my look. You stayed in the hotel called Your Daughter's Arms. No wonder the mother's so forbidding, so hard to embrace. I only wait in the lobby, in the bar. I write. People say, "What is it?" I ask if I must tell all the rest, for never since I was born, and for no man or woman I've ever met, I'll swear to that, have there been such dreams as I had today, the 22nd day of December, which, if I can now remember, I'll tell you all about, if I can. Can I say what I saw? In sleep, in dreams, and what dreams were before your returning arms took me like a memory to the room I always return to when thought turns to memory's best love. I learned to deny desire from an acquired habit of vigilant fear, till again to my nursed pleasure you and this love reappear like a story. Let me tell you what I saw. Listen to me. You must be, you are the beginning of the day. When we are both asleep, you waken me. I'm made of you. You must hear what I must say. First, I thought I saw people all around me, wondering what it is I write. I saw up close the faces of animals. I slid down a long grassy hill past everyone doing everything. I was going faster. There were no streets to cross, no dignity lost. A long story without pausing. I was racing. No one approved of what I was learning. I saw a woman's daughter. We met on the stairs. I saw everything that was ever hidden or happening. I saw that my daughters were older than me, but I wanted to see further. Nobody, including you, of all the people doing things, was approving of my sliding like this down the long tilting hill, past the place to play and all the past. I saw the moon's last quarter in the southern sky at dawn. Then I saw the shawls of the dream, as if they were the sky, and the dream's dark vests and the dream's collar and cuffs of black leather on the dream's black leather jackets. I was alone in the dream's dressing room, trying on different styles of tough gang wear or rain gear. In the dream, my daughters, Sophia and Marie, are always with me. Then we climb a mountain to the Metcalf's house. Nancy's fixing us the 18 intricate courses of the Japanese dinner. We sit at the counter, curving around the kitchen like what they call a kidney-shaped pool, eating hearts of heads of wet red and green lettuce in the most high and palmy state of friendly love. Then Paul takes us all on a trip. A while ago, the Japanese lady who lives next door smiled when Marie smelled the fragrance of her cultivated rose. Sometimes dream is so rampant, so wild as to seem more luxuriant than day's repose. So without riot spreading everywhere, how can I be both here and there? Then I found a message in an oversized book on the way to Allen Ginsberg's nursery school, where Ken Kesey was conducting a big picnic. Then I saw all the buildings of New York drawn to look like the illustrations in a children's book. And I dreamed the road was so slippery from a truck's oil spill, we had to stop at a truck stop, though our friends who were ahead of us might lose us. All the food in this place is served in a big dollhouse, and the salads in a hat box. They're catering to us. It's hilarious. Suddenly we all crack up and we say, you don't just eat from the desire to see a vine, which today is called a chicken sandwich. You do seem to eat because you wear a hat. And so the hat's box is empty and must be filled with food. Do you see what I mean? It was a special restaurant. I was with Grace Murphy. Then I dreamed I was ordering pom-poms, not those ornamental tufts on hats and not chrysanthemums, but a kind of rapid firing machine gun. Really, I can't figure out what's good and what's bad. I know I want to awaken feeling, some remembered perfection, for which I crave a homeopathic dose of evil, like the hair of the dog in the proverb, to offset the unsteady state of memory. What man or woman could this be involving? So fleet it is, indulging and not quite flying, but dreaming, flaunting the short-lived continuity of a sound like hummingbirds. What is a story? Can I say that here? Or should I wait till later, wherever the question of life's chronology of satisfying the favored senses might better gratify the falling course of the grave day, as I must come closer to inevitably waking up, like a dying man is dying, spoiling the favor you might grant me to extend this liberal time and remit my punishment due, though I've confessed already and been forgiven. Are you going to convince me there's nothing more to dream up, like sins not committed but related anyway, to cover innocence? Always listening to everything you see, watching the sounds of the day. Wouldn't it be possible to eat everything, all the collected foods, even you and oneself, like the dinosaurs just dying out in some unaccountable hungry fall, cunningly saint-like? The night cometh when no man can work, and David saw that Saul was come out to seek his work. I dream I vault the fence. There's a cheerleader who needs to be kissed and caressed. It's like a blizzard. Like my father, I lost my color wheel when I died. I go vaulting over the consequent fence, and with my ambition, I meet Gregory Peck. I always do. He looks like you. We go to the movies again. We go to 2. We always do. And all the children are put, thrust, driven, goaded, impelled and flung, urged and pushed into bed. Then I can dream. We move again to the house where I was born. I'm wandering and forgetting. We are arranging what rooms each of the children will finally sleep in. Can Marie sleep in the hall bedroom, or is Andrew still alive? Andrew, who's like Bill, or Bill's like him. This state of things in dreams could kill friendship if I told all, even to Uncle Andrew, who's also a lot like Clark. Anyway, I know we must share this copied house with my grandfather, another Andrew, who is a little mean. Now everybody's here in this room, and we are a party to death. I look at the old uncle who is still a young Andrew or Bill. I am trying to remember where in time I am. I study his face, but all I see is plain expression, not the look of a man who's dead and knows it, like something or somebody nobody absolutely needs to know. I decide not to say anything about it. Already I've looked closer without moving to him. A man without responses, but that's beyond all this. I say to myself in dream, it's all the same. All the people in this room will surely die sometime. Who cares which ones are already dead? I'm just here now in my dream, like I always am, among the charms of sweet Andrew, charming Bill. I can't go on. Is there an end to such love and the duty of dreaming? Things seen eyes closed, not seeming to be dreams, like the blackest edges once I saw outlining each leaf in spring one year, or the jewels I saw with grace lying together before a thunderstorm. I could suggest to her then, and she to me, what kind of thing would appear to us next in the train of vision, moving from right to left under love's closed eyes. I hope you can see as much when I try to suggest among lines of the evaporating word what idea I've seen, what image each dream heard. There's no end to a narration of forms. from all the ways of looking, eyes closed. Thank you.
That was gorgeous. Jenny McBain-Stephens went to NYU's Tisch School of Arts and now lives in Iowa, where she likes to rock climb. She's the author of 4 full-length poetry collections and 12 chapbooks. Her recent chapbooks include Teeth Have a Hardness Scale of 5 from Sputnik and Fizzle Press, and The Female Citizens of Sunshine Nation Face Off with Light-Sucking Demons from Gray Book Press. Her work can be seen or is forthcoming from The Pinch, Cleaver, Yolobusha Review, Zone 3, and Grist. She's also the host of the reading series Today You Are Perfect with Iowa City Poetry.
Thank you. Thanks, Lisa. And thanks so much to Midwest Writing Center and Iowa City Poetry for including me in this. I'm really happy to be here and to share space with you all. And similar to Emily, this is actually the first time that I've come to this work. And I really enjoyed it. I think I'm definitely gonna buy the book. I think I just really enjoyed the timelessness of it. It was so modern and old at the same time. And the section, I thought my section that I was reading, you know, I think it sort of focuses on dreams. But then when I heard Emily read her section, I was like, oh my gosh, so the dreams, that's like a theme through the whole work, I think. So I really love that. And I really connect with that. And especially in the winter, I think we spend more time inside in the Midwest with our thoughts and our anxieties and our coldness. And so our dreams can really play in our heads. So without further ado, I'm going to read the section from page 15 to around page 21. But I'm also going to skip around. I'm not reading every single line. So maybe that's a bit unorthodox, but that's just what I'm doing. Okay. Dreams, like obsessions, are a relief. Not to think about it's all counting and figuring wrong like arithmetic lists. Rich American people seethe within big cars, expand without ever breaking the unaesthetic table with their frenetic fists. The best dreams are free stories, like a present of food. I want to have a big dream about only leaves, or a place I've never seen, which interweaves not with the old subtracted love of which I am bereft, but the unequaled new, what I can't count, with which I'm left. I saw another dream plane and a mechanical horse. So complicated, I woke up before I could get on it. I was reminded of finding out from dreams what a story is. I was strongly invited to remember as an ember that the fairies terrified us inwardly. Even Peter hated me. I had to take the blame for being in a house without fortunes or beer. In a flat, sandy town around the corner from the mountains at the beach, we swam the channel in lanes, but the fairies terrified us. An old man needed a cheap, peaceful place to stay for a few days. He couldn't get the words out. I listen, being patient, because I'm also old, and I've learned to sit up straight. We lost all our money speculating in beer, manufactured like company matchbooks. I was in a lot of places like policemen go to. I explained all this. People, animals, and plants do what they do today, again tomorrow. This is something I can't say about you. It follows that children take a long time to grow. We speed it up, but everything is slow. Before I was being at the understood place, existing or happening now, I guess I was in process. And in contrast with past, and future. Today, I'm the present writer. At the present time, the snow has come. At this moment, we won't starve. At once, the fairies terrify us, and we need red and green peppers with our contrasting hands. At a time very close to the present, I want to get a tight pair of pants and dance with you, with things as they are. Just talking to talk and reading to read. We'll never know if the dough I was kneading was Play-Doh or cash. I don't. Do you? People need Christmas money. Winter makes us wet and cold and old, like a man of 80 winters who will keep hot food on the stove like stories told to pass midwinter night and never sleep. It's the dead of winter, remember? I count the days, I dream. It's okay. So much stuff in dreams seems to come from books. It's as if the sun does revolve around the earth and everyone is writing about you. All the authors are my neighbors. Everyone is still living in a restaurant on Madison Street in a trash novel locale in Ridgewood, Brooklyn, Queens, New York, where I grew up. My mother never drank liquor at all. Just an occasional highball, morning mist, grasshoppers. I read everything upside down. Someone says, I wanted to see Grand Central one more time before you remind me again, death, like everything. I had tried to foresee it couldn't have been any other way. I love the bending window. I dream. It's a sandwich, but the bread is the meat. Your echoic lips dispel the pretty dream scene. I asked you then for toys and quick machines and Romanesque and Grecian Westerns with lions. This eats this better than this. I dream. The dull moon's rehearsal for a day is a leaf, spread like muffins with butter from the trees. I just ate 30 of them, or 31, or 32, or 33, or 34. Soon my life is at least half over. Yet, your secret lover, still asleep, must fear the world's displeasure, as of a mother. If she dreams of a man at whom a pie was thrown, if she dreams of awakening alone, it's the Annunciation again. I hate the dreadful patience of all these saints. These cold, stunned flies can't even move, lying casually, covered in pain everywhere. As quick as I rush to the window to know the time of day and what's across the street to meet us when we wake, I'm impatient with excitement to invite you to share what can't be seen. And I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Jenny. I thought that was a perfect section for you to read. It seems very reminiscent of your voice in some ways.
Thank
in your work. Or maybe it's the other way around. All right, thank you so much. Our next reader is Laura Johnson. Laura Johnson is a poet and writer who lives and works in Eastern Iowa. As a founding co-editor of the Back Channel's literary journal and an educator, she spends much of her time making space for writers and artists of all kinds. Laura is a prize-winning slam poet, and her work has appeared in a variety of journals and magazines. She is an MFA candidate at the University of New Orleans. and is a graduate BA/MA of the University of Iowa. In her non-writing hours, she walks her dogs, hangs out with her kids, and sips whiskey while looking at the moon. Laura's most recent book, just out, is Momento Vivere. Thank you so much, Laura, for joining us.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to read from the beginning of this section, starting on page 32, if anyone's following along, and then I'll skip a little bit and go towards the end of the section. I did put the rest of the clothes away, though I did and didn't want to, in straight, regular rows, in an arrangement of peace among a series of thoughts of the chaotic rank and still positions of ourselves and where we fit in the system of the news of the day, a portion of which was submitted to the typesetters last night while we were sleeping and planned and laid out on the big pages in order of importance, which begins in the upper right-hand corner where the eye goes first. The rest is editorials and speculation, some sensation, but no color to hide or uncover feelings like the mountains and so on better reflect. Old Harry is another name for Satan. From the bedroom, curtains blue as ink, I stare at red Goddard floor, white walls all crayoned, from the bed raised on cinder blocks at Dr. Aneko's midwife's request so Sophia could be born. Fake Indian cover Ray gave us for Marie, American Indian, and Ray's old real wool blanket and all our sheets, her gifts. Lewis's Aunt Fanny's crocheted Afghan and Tom's old sleeping bag. The mimeograph machine and its cover, diaper rash ointment, from the walls a butterfly kite, a leaf on a ribbon from nursery school, mushrooms by Joe, an iris and a gladiola by Rosemary, the gladiola painted here, and stuck clock, the window faces south, laundry on it, closet doors hung with jackets, shawls, scarves, and Marie's dress, closet floor, boots, shoe boxes, bag baby carriers, and my broken inherited chair. That's the airport, closet of stuff, carpet sweeper, another broken chair. From there, I go to the kitchen sink you can sit on at the imagined forest window. Two coleus plants, too cold today. Now a wandering Jew, two related spider plants, one is hanging. Stones, dead branches, and collected pine cones, an old ghost and a Boston fern on the spooky refrigerator, in which is the food. Drawings of attempted faces by Marie that look like Cy Twombly, the dumb electric stove, George's red shirt calendar, soon it'll be over. The Lenox Savings Bank's historical calendar, pilgrims landed yesterday, winter begins today. Shortest day of the year. Lewis and Harris with Marie in a Bronx corridor, little light. The African woman backpacking a baby, she's talking to a totem figure, a street scene by Raphael in German altarpiece, Rosemary sent, a crude drawing of a nude woman by Paul, a poster of a panda on the door to the former pantry, now a house for two heaters, one for air and one for water, and the vents ducts and the pipes for each, old flower pots. The hall to the door to the hall, full of boxes of angel hair books, the broken bassinet, now a toy box with turtles and cups in it, a small space full of brown paper bags, and a cardboard six-pack wrappers, broom, dishes and pots, fruit on the hood of the stove, bottles and jars, teas and books, medicines, foods and detergents, binoculars, the dishwasher, vinegar, garbage, Lewis's mother's old Scotch cooler, spices, another of George's plaid shirts, coats on hooks, a red tray, to the deadpan bathroom, a woman by Matisse in yellow and blue, and an ordinary Mercurator projection of the world, potty chair, diaper pail for cloth diapers, plastic bag of used plastic diapers, toilet, sink, tub, bath toys, an alligator that swims mechanically, and a shark with teeth that is a mitt and a sponge. Hideous old curling rug lying in the tub after yesterday's flood. Hooks on the back of the door, layers of clothing hanging on them, a mirror, ointments and pills, razors and potions, and soaps, shower curtains to the main living room, the living room, 2 leaping goldfish, cornflower plant, jade tree, wandering Jew not doing too well, another spider offshoot, purple weed, I don't know the name of, accidentally growing in a pot of sedum, Christmas tree fern with a sense of humor, whiskey, the main collapsing table with things, rocking chair, small wearing rug on the golden wood floor, 2 couches with things on them, public school chairs with arms for the principals at table, shelves of books and books in boxes, boxes of paper and stencils, 2 ring binders of photos. Since Worthington, my desk, I steer and things, a standing lamp Nancy got us, a jacket by Joe and a blue shirt by a watercolor of drapery by Rosemary, done in Worthington. A drawing of Ted by Joe. A watch by George. Some Kirschwasser. Dead files and dead flies. Magazines and library books. Toys and balls. A stereo. 4 windows and the more frequent door. An idea I have is to spend days walking, nights writing, never eating, sleep only when it rains, and have an occasional beer. Instead of dressing in striped green suit, you put a sheet between your legs and drape yourself upside down over the side of the bed, becoming hysterical. And then, I know I can't rush you, but when I see you can't sustain it, I change the subject to something I know you want to know about and get the clothes on while you're still thinking, but it only half works. Now 2 are done. What an associative way to live this is. Dreams of hearts beating like sudden mountain peaks I can see in my chest like other breasts. Then in one vertiginous moment, I can forget all but the reunion and your original face. 2 shirts under overalls, over tights, under shoes, then 1 sweater, outer suits with legs or leggings, mittens attached, and hats and overshoes, everybody wanting something or nothing to be done to them, then one of the shoes falls off again. I have an image of a beautiful man or woman who walks in the door like Christ and earnestly spends some time with us, like the UPS man does. Am I so modest as this time of day assumes I've learned? Have I lost my tough or punk part among these kids who write on lines between the windows where I imitate them after they cover the walls with notes on making a face generous or a house a cave? Is all the morning's cold-blooded conflict appointed to visions out the willful window? What are the poetry's themes? Grotesque little figures released by a spring from a box. When the lid is lifted by another, I jump up to rescue an old reputation for immoral misfortune as one who does low, dishonest work for another who suffers. My brother who pays me in sarcastic dogs for my writing, a swindle. I eat the leavings like the jackal after the lion is done. I know nothing practically like the wolf or a tasteless seed nonetheless edible, a perjured witness, straw man, an imposter, a jackstraw and jumbled heap of pickup sticks in the game, the peaceful steps from earth to heaven, monkey to exaltation, Jacob's ladder, just a simple blue and white flower. My Father, have I left anything out? Why have I been forsaken for this joy? And I'll stop there.
Right on. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate your reading. I'm back to introduce our next reader, but just real quick, just to remind people, we're here to support Bernadette Mayer. So click on that donate link, check out our website, and also check out our other books. We were kind of talking in the chat about like how this book came to be. And there's another book, an earlier book called Memory, among many of Bernadette Mayer's incredible experiments where she exposed a roll of 35 millimeter film every day and took like comprehensive notes for every day in July 1971. And that book, or a version of that book, came out in May of 2020 from Siglio Press. So that's another book that you could get, support her and get some of her work in your life, because obviously it's better with that. Our next reader is Sarah Algatien, who works at the Midwest Writing Center and who is a really terrific writer, poet, essayist, and just all-around fantastic human being. So Sarah, please take it away.
Thank you, Ryan. For folks following along at home, there's a link for the Google Book version of this in the Iowa City Poetry chat. I'm going to be starting at the, I don't know, third-ish stanza on page 45. Incorporated in 1767, this town's not very old, like hot dogs and Pampers. Everybody who visits us finds it kind of unwitting to walk around a town like any other, just a place, except it's New England, which is defended, tight and cold. I'd rather live somewhere higher, warmer, and a little freer, where money was like matches and words were wine. But as it is, Lennox is okay. Lennox is okay for us as a family, 2 writers and 2 babies, each of whom have each other still somehow beyond the community of local people, some of whom are limited, bigoted, stodgy, or mean. Others among them love nature and certain kinds of art, and a man we know who lives alone here says he's lonely. He just reads, drinks, keeps a journal, and sniffs cocaine. The town adolescents shout and skid around in their cars and leave half-empty bottles of Jack Daniels in the park. The high school imported a black man from Harlem to play on their championship basketball team, the Lennox Millionaires, and the rumor is the schools are so bad the students don't always learn to really read and write in sentences. Hockey's a big thing. I don't know anything about it. A lot of cars have Lennox Scholar Dollar Day stickers, which means they want to give money to the unathletic kids. Zoning, sewers, and taxes concern all the owners of private property, and the town is run tightly with an eye to tourist money. But there's no other industry except for GE. Lewis's mother says we're snobs, and we only think about poetry. It's true. There's something about America that's unthinkable, like the style my mother thought she ought to be accustomed to because her mother had convinced her she was better than all this. Whatever this is, but not good enough to slough off the religion of the simple joys of poverty, humility, and fear. And so she gave me my economic father the business. She gave my economic father the business religiously, and they both died young, having said, if we don't spend this money to go on a vacation, we might have to spend it if we got sick, without understanding that once bereft, we've more to lose, and energy in the world mainly comes from the hearts of the homeostatic people in it, who hopscotch around, either picking up a stone or kicking it, and should be left alone without invasions or savings. Though there are masses and classes of people, I don't deny it, but what but the impulse to move and speak can change the world? Where should we move? Who is this person speaking? Who am I speaking to? To you, whom I love? Can I say that? I can't stand to watch the people leaving Sheer Design, that's the hairdresser's place, looking like the man from Atlantis or Farrah Fawcett Majors, or like men who invidiously wish to be like the unspeakable Shah of Iran in their dealings with the world. Now, withdrawing, now attainable, rich with a drastic face for the hopelessly bitter people, or the old story of the ludicrous young man in business, flattering the aging women with the greed of his attention, to further and simultaneously subvert the relentless image of the attitude of his mother to his father. Maybe here my own moralism smacks of my neighbor's inherited tight-lipped looks. These judgmental, rugged individuals tense in the rigid mourning like a memory of a funeral. Good day. I'll defend your dismay. Parents come to the hurricane to protest the children learning the usual way, to eat and adore. No, that's not what I saw. Just beyond the civilized town are places everyone goes by car. Sears, Zayres and King's, Stop and Shop, and the Prince Chopper, which is cheaper because they don't use union labor. Big mothers steer carts with kids past the things, and something called malls are the big thing now, with indoor gardens and no windows where whole families can go, even on the weekends for pleasure, to go buy things. But the malls seem to ruin the lives of local people and are all caught up with hideous deals with fraudulent corporations. From the outside, these agglomerations look like artless spaceships buried into the ground, surrounded by cars and some trees in space. And one of the problems with them is that such blatant flatness creates winds so fierce in winter one cannot walk. Inside are millions of objects of novelty and fast food to eat in imitation of being rich like kings and being brought things, of being surfeited and entertained like queens, vomiting to be able to assimilate more, which there isn't room for in the spaceless, closeted private property house rendered valuable lately by the inability to see another house from it. Though in a state like this, it's nice to be alone. I'll trade you. We go on anyway. The hotel's deserted today. Red berries, this is the windiest corner of our walk, the most bitter. The southern boundary of the circumscribed town, branches fallen on each heart of every man and woman, if they are they, invasion of the body snatchers. They seem to walk more tentatively, as we do. Like a step on the ice of the wisdom of the tempered sky, like need and desire, money, fame, and all kinds of love, now to creep without aggression or the protected passion of a real man or woman through this pile of beautiful ice, as if to slip away means nothing. Has no word or expression, like the baby's desire to swallow all the eggshells like nesting birds. The strollers make us roar, except for cars. We practically see only white or black or gray today. We look and we see peripatetic, like police, the police, like the police, the police. If it were noon, the noon siren would just have frightened us. Voting, the energetic town government so clean and full of men who make sure the eyes of the people, if nothing worse, avoid flashing and neon signs and flagrant cheap posters and designs, street vendors and the uncut grass. Last summer, they even cut down the only blackberry bush in town, and the library had to lose its 2 dramatic elms. It's 12:15 p.m. Everything circumscribed, but what of nature's still around? No place any different, but for the limits of fear and love. We love to walk for the rhythm of the heights to right, going forward on foot by sights, leaves the self alone at home. Something might happen, or nothing, old lines. I might even die. Ice and storms could crack the maples in their immobile ages. Sentimental telephone cables are buried in the center of town, not with a view to Mount Greylock. You've done all this before. Nothing happens. Let's go over it again. You've walked around. We're turning nearer home. We meet the librarian who's got an interesting hat. If it's not too cold or hot, we'll see the whole town every day. 2 square blocks with alleys, shortcuts, the town clock, and 2 weathercocks. The lemon tire, chimneys, the crazy horse, lilac park, the first dentist, the dramatic post office, the academy landmark, Amico station, Dr. Tosk's, Loeb's food mart, Hagyard's drugs, Mole and Mole, the Lenox library, Whitestone photo, 2 icy fire plugs, 2 banks, Curtis Hotel, Town Hall, Firehouse, police station, Dee's department store, 4 Seasons travel bus stop combination, different drummer, coffee break, Candlelight Inn, Gateways Inn, Community Center, Kelly's Irish Inn, Paddlewicker, Village Inn, Nora's, Little Anthony's, David Herrick's, The Pizza Place, The Arcadian Shop, Lucy Lou's, The Second Dentist, An Empty Space, Spiritus Mundi, Clearwater, The Greasy Spoon, Michelle the Baker, Buxton's Hardware, Elm Court Florist, The Bookstore, The Shoemaker, Heritage House. Just a second, I've skipped the churches and Church Street between the Housatonic and Franklin, where the two package stores meet, the Golden Needle, Mainstream Woodworks, the former Yogurt Rhapsody, the Golden Glad Rags, the restaurant, the laundromat, and art gallery. I skipped Hawthorne Press, which is just off the main route, and the nursery school, though we often go by foot. I will end there.
Thank you, Sarah. That's fantastic. Okay, up next, we have Jessica Klosh. Jessica is a technical editor and proofreader with an MA in English from Bowling Green State University and an MFA in creative writing from Cedar Crest College. Her fiction has appeared or is forthcoming in Timber, Star 82 Review, The Cafe Ariel, Flash Flood Journal, and elsewhere. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to read. As a lot of my writing is experimental and in like syntactical and structural, and so this is kind of an interesting piece to read and think about how she came up with it, and I feel like it's very inspiring for my own work as well. I'm going to start page 66 near the bottom and read to about page 70. I love chopping vegetables, where you do something to make something that is one idiosyncratic thing into many things, all looking the same or identical, much like the vegetable's original seeds. How rapt attention is to doing things this as if it were a story. I remember Bill saying how he and Beverly, when they began to be short of money, couldn't understand why when Clark wanted to buy Susan a Cuisinart, she said she didn't want one. Everything is edible. It's a long story, coins or cubes or tree rings of carrots like the slices of trees that are tables in the library yard, canoes of celery like the clergy or something with strings attached, miniature trees of broccoli, and if you are poor enough to want to cook the whole plant, there are inevitable tree stumps that look like primitive clouds. Moses used to have cauliflower ears, now covered by curls like grated carrots, last quarter moons of onions or bloated apostrophes, crumpled papers with typographical errors of chopped spinach or greens, unseaworthy boats of rigid turnips in which the survivors resort to cannibalism rather than eat the odoriferous boats, railroad ties for French fries, sleepers, the third estate, the common people, Oldenburgs to go into stew or a peasantish flying saucer for a meatloaf, or the flapping wings of the memory of rich pounded veal where I am crushing flesh between waxed paper with a hammer in the kitchen if I can afford it, the commas of the cheapest small onions for the sauce, the olive oils drops on the map of the pot of tomatoes, letters of the straight pasta and the poons in the soup with Twombly's, arbitrary split moons of the half peas, the camera lenses of the lentils, homogenized script of the mass rice, foreplay with the nice knife at butter. My mother used to have a pressure cooker, but she made it clear she was afraid it would explode any minute. When she cooked carrots in it, she had a habit of saying, "It's too bad they taste earthy." We're only having spaghetti. Once on my mother's birthday, which was April 4th, we went for a picnic to Clarence Sponstock State Park, and I refused to get out of the car. She also had a habit of regretting she hadn't married somebody rich, like the man who used to take me out in a taxi. Bright sun is on everything. It's on the ice on the roofs, on the wet street, on Marie in the kitchen. It's making parallelograms on the walls of the rooms. I like to play poker. Poe was an incessant gambler, and Hawthorne got in trouble for gambling at school. Once I made a bluff so large I blushed, but I got away with it and won $40. Marie spilled her milk again. No use crying over spilled milk. Wittgenstein says there's no such thing as a private language. I think it would be worth trying to make one. Sol Kripke solved the liar's paradox, but I cannot understand his solution. Wittgenstein's house was furnished with old crates, though he was not poor, and when he came to eat at your house, he would wash all the clean dishes over again himself before the meal, because he was afraid they were not really clean. Once Lewis had a job teaching a rich woman to write, and when I came home, I saw a filthy glass filled with water on the table. He said he had given it to her to drink. I think I'll have a beer. As a child, Lewis had something wrong with his eyes, which they now call amblyopia. Both his eyes didn't function at once, and you have to wear a patch over the good eye to exercise the bad eye. Lewis thinks someday maybe he'll be blind, and our daughters and I will have to read aloud to him all his abstruse books on Jewish mysticism, just like Milton. He hasn't even read the New Testament yet, but recently he asked me where Christ was born. There's that cloud again, muttering in the organized blue sky of love about diffidence. Sometimes as a child, when I was out visiting relatives and I was bored and wanted to go home, I would throw up. It wasn't hard to do because my aunt made chocolate cake with orange flavoring and iced tea with orange juice in it and jello with slices of orange. My sister used to get bloody noses. I call nursery school to find out when they'll be closed for Christmas and talk to Barbara about Hanukkah. Margaret Fuller married an Italian revolutionary named Count Osoli and had a child when she was 37. When they boarded the ship to come to New York, Margaret was so filled with foreboding she could not walk. The ship sank off the coast of Fire Island and she and her family were killed. Frank O'Hara was killed in an accident on Fire Island when he was also 40 years old. I clean the cutting board with a cloth and remember something so awful I can't relate it now. 2 things, not to ever tell, but just to say they have to do with jealousy. I can say stories are always remembered. After all, they're not just made up like a dream. They're like dreams made to conform to the structure of remembering what is not a dream. I used to live with my first boyfriend in an unused kitchen in his family's house in Long Island City. They were a big Italian family. Bob's grandmother lived with them, and they'd converted the basement into a big kitchen where we ate important meals and listened to the grandmother's stories of how her husband, when he first came to America, shot a man who made a pass at her or knifed him and had to go to jail. He had been a street cleaner and she had a bad back and slept on a bed that was a board and had to wear a complicated corset. After my uncle died, Bob's family wound up taking care of me, always trying to feed me steaks and keep me warm and to, as they put it, keep my mind off things. So I took summer courses in psychology at Hunter. A Bolognese doctor they had sent me to said there was nothing wrong with me, a good slap wouldn't cure. And the day I got out of the hospital in Queens where I had seen a woman die, I saw a man hit by a car and thrown 100 feet in the air. Bob had an uncle who had an ulcer and always drank milk and secretly smoked. And another uncle who was a tool and a dye worker who died of something everyone in the family said was caused by his having eaten too many Puerto Rican joints. Bob's sister nursed her babies discreetly with a diaper over her shoulder to cover her breast, and her husband had a compost heap and grew the best vegetables. He was a carpenter named Bucky Presti. Bob's sister's best friend Carolyn was killed in a car accident. We slept in the kitchen practicing onanism, but every time I began to seem crazy enough to collapse again, they would assume I was just pregnant. I make a note of what we'll need to eat for the next 3 days since the stores will be closed for Christmas. All this time I was living with Bob and his family. I was trying to live with my grandfather in Ridgewood, but the house only reminded me of death, and my grandfather insisted that all the lights be out after 9 o'clock. He'd come into my room and shout angrily, but he never could remember who I was, and he would call me Marie. When I went out at night, he would double lock the doors so I couldn't get back in. The sauce is done. Then I went to visit a girlfriend of mine who was going to a Jesuit college in Syracuse. When I came home, Bob met me at the airport. It was the first time I'd flown and I had fallen in love with someone, and that was Ed. We went back to my house in Ridgewood. This was when I was trying to go to Barnard, but it took me 2 hours to get there. Bob's mother had given me a wedding shower because my grandfather had given me my mother's diamond ring, and she took that to mean we were engaged since she was worried I'd get pregnant before we got married. though she was relieved that Bob wasn't queer after all. I didn't know anything about birth control. We had set a date for the wedding and arranged a reception, but the place we were going to have it in burned down. Bob's mother worked as a maker of wedding gowns. So that night in my house, I told Bob to watch me sleep because I was afraid to sleep otherwise. In the middle of the night, I sat up in bed, he said, and asked him a question. After that, he always understood that I was no longer in love with him. I didn't know what Ed wanted to do, but a couple of days later, he came to my house and said, I wanted to live with you. I want to live with you. Meet me in 2 weeks. The night before I was supposed to leave, I went out with Grace, who a while before had been in such a bad car accident, she was still walking with a cane. We went to a bar and I left with a minor league baseball player who had an MG. Grace left with someone else and we met later at my house. I missed the taxi I'd called to make the early plane, but I caught a later one. And when Grace woke up in my house all alone, my grandfather mistook her for me, even though she has red hair, and he called her Bernie. When Grace left, my neighbor Tex told her he'd seen the taxi and wondered what was going on. He's the one who had said when my father died, "Who's that?" And I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That was a beautiful reading. Our next reader is I'm trying to say this in a way that won't embarrass me. It's somebody I look up to a lot. She is an amazingly talented poet with a book that just came out this year from Fence Books, and she has these really, really beautiful projects. She's immensely talented. The book is called Like You, and the poet is Beth Roberts. Take it away, please. Oh, Beth, we've got you muted.
I unmuted myself. Let me turn up the space heater as well. Hold on.
In the meantime, Carter is still here. This is my cat who loves poetry. Are you ready, Beth?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm reading from page 76 till the end. And it's a great section. I love this section because it's got it all. I think it has starts off with some like religious language or biblical at least, and the quotidian language that she's using, throughout the days, and then transformational stuff. And it's just amazing. And some humor. I'm also drinking a beer because at least twice in the book, she says, I think I'll have a beer. Okay. Joshua, the son of Nun, sent men to Jericho to spy for him. They went to the house of a harlot named Rahab. She hid them from the king because she said she knew the Lord had given them the land and had dried up the water of the Red Sea for them. In exchange for her help, they agreed to spare her and her family from annihilation if she would hang a scarlet thread from her window. I stole from the bed, not to waken Marie. She's happy to sleep, but will wake up angry. Sophia will wake up feeling good unless she's cold. In the morning, if the sun shines, which now it hardly ever does, Sophia gestures with grace towards the eastern window in her room. I set fire to the end of a cigarette and look out the kitchen window at the mess of ice on the trees, streets, and roofs. No geese flying south. It's the awful solstice. This morning, the axis of the earth began with papers called its slow tilting return. The sun will last 1 minute longer and the nights will be shorter. Lately, when the sun sets, it breaks through the hat of cloud in the sky like a person on the street who only glances at you, and then it begins to snow. The sun catches your eye. A calm sentence like a story. I used to know a man who had a dog, and I followed their steps in the snow. I got into the habit of walking just as far as they did every day. At the same time, I also knew a woman whose husband had 7 guns. I used to know a woman who's the woman who married Neil Simon. I like the woman who used to work in the Lenox market. She never wears boots. Then she retired. In New England, the women are often more exciting than the men. Lewis thinks so too. I don't know why. There's a tribe somewhere where people say about the men, look how he's changed since he's had children. He looks awful. Then soldiers came to relinquish and not fortify the wall, and a meal was made of fish from the brazen sea and wine in vessels of brass. And every day that remained, its work required that the day be a woman and that the woman be pretending to be another woman. That anger is the father and anger is the child. Death is food to remember history to tell. A big fat man with a white beard and a red suit who eats what we eat and is never cold, even though he flies around the world in only air. Dear mother, the church is still cold. The language into which we put the order of stories from this kind of memory is a mesmeration of sins, like the ones I made up, which were my first stories, because when I still had reason to confess, I was free of even the venality of my tales, though told with love, and I could imagine coming up with enough lack of perfection to commit them or even obsessively put them in writing like a letter to a judge when I'm in prison, rather than just to speak them to one man who was a story in himself of a kind of outfit of supposed love, which could turn to enmity or even lechery out of love, another love in a minute. A story of the moment of the mystical body and cannibalistic frenzy laced with fierce and beautiful singing of songs in loud, strong, weak, guilty, and innocent voices. Below the organ tagging along behind the desire for a fantastic transforming love of what is beauty or rituals, idolatry of mystery among our historical family, all present in the church, though late, to tell us what to do next and how to have the pride to proceed. Not the pride of devils who are fallen angels, but the pride of angels who are faithful, who subsume all love of other, and the hideousness of possession under the vaulted ceiling, which is standing for the life where the mind is like a sky over the earth. And men and women are the homeostatic expressions of a universe given for a while to their multitudinous ideals of fateful love, land as homes, and the principles of families and food. And the righteousness that activates the strongest of what's left of the men and women after wars are finished to excite the rest to some belief in gratuitous love and the inevitability of the sublime, because life for almost everyone has its moments. And but for that, the whole thing is somewhat dead already. This was my great confusion. The history of every historical thing, including God, but not including all men and women individually, is a violent mess like this ice. But for the spaces even hunchbacked history has allowed in between the famous and loud for something that's defined as what does please us, which is perhaps this story of an intimate family, though you won't believe or will be unable to love it, driven to research love's limits in its present solitude, as if each man or woman in the world was only one person with everything I've mentioned separate in him or she didn't represent any history at all, though he or she had stories to tell and was just sitting kind of crazily before an open window in midwinter, or thinking of the celebrating supper or sleeping on the independent bed or in the enclosed crib, which in history could only be relentlessly plundered. In story, sensational death, perhaps. I am like a woman who says I am another woman, or a man who says I am another man. They sleep to rest, beginning to know another like a story. Then we rest to recover something already gotten from what might be called its mother and father. Next, our genius will amaze us like the rest we've had to discover all we might ever be able to know, but not before, as the story now goes. The ones who discover it will be mythically lost, having suffered wanting to unearth more than there is from what history is supposed to be, less than a baby, or the terrible criminal repeating memory which slows us down like a race or a swift attack, a current of water in a river, or the ocean's more famous undertow. This window of mine, too badly designed to let air in, yet too large to make sense. I only feel cold, and I'm still here before it. Young enough, but still a mother. Old enough to end the story that might have ended before me. I have a sensation of wanting. I have a sensation of waiting, maybe also wanting. You should call and tell me how the rest might go. Like an important letter, a whole different matter. If I only knew what I needed to know. You call and I say in some way, I already know all about it. I expected it. That's a story that might happen today. I don't dare to end as death is still bewildering. Love might be a trick and you are another. But to be beginning, I'll only say that to have you as love is like the history of this idiosyncrasy. If that is not a story, then I, who have so far listened so much, and now I'm beginning to be able to say something, which is another story, am surprised. That's the end of part 4.
That was gorgeous, Beth. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Our next reader is Mark Lamarro, who lives in New Haven, Connecticut. His work's been published in print and online in Elderly, Denver Quarterly, Jacket, 14 Hills, and many others. He's the author of 5 full-length collections of poems: Algatien, It'll Never Be Over for Me, 29 Cheeseburgers plus 39 Years, Spectre, and Astrometry Organon. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mark, for reading.
Thank you, Linda, for having me be a part of this. I got this very copy of Midwinter Day at Waterstone's Books in Boston in the 90s, before I knew anything about language poetry or really knew anybody else in Boston. But later on, I would come to know Bill Corbett and Beverly, who were mentioned in one of the earlier sections of the book, and a lot of other people who knew Bernadette really well. Well, I've never met her myself. I sort of know any number of people who are pretty close to her, and like Ryan, I often or all the time used language experiments from issue number 3 of Language Magazine in my creative writing classes. And it's always kind of a breakthrough moment for a lot of students. So my life just wouldn't be the same without Bernadette Mayer. So thank you. I will start off with the first full paragraph on page 89. To be existing and practicing as a poet, no, I can't say that. In the past of the West and maybe further, poets told stories, they sang, they wrote epics, they composed for occasions. Inherent in the history of our lives together since I, all the while wanting to write this book, met you, is a story. I don't know if I can tell it. I'll go as fast as I can on the occasion of this day. Amidst the immodest disasters of our hooligan times, you were born to a composed family in the Bronx in 1944. No, I can't do it. It's too much like, this is your life. Remember the time you threw Anne and Kathy out of our house and I threw a bottle and broke the window? Remember the feeling of being hemmed in by the snow? Did I ever tell you about how Nick used to say if he saw 2 glasses on the table, who have you been sleeping with? David used to say, if you could tell the story of exactly what is happening, it would be amazing, but I can't do it. Besides remembering is past approval. Even today, I remember when Sophia was born and she lay on the bed before she made a sound like a warrior sprung from the ground or Athena from the head of Zeus. We did dance, you and I, and go to anybody's parties. We would celebrate. We would be inside this house of not remembering. We would be shocked as innocence remembers where we used to sleep. We would gradually give nights recuperating balance to the day, not ever trusting to have enough time. We would obsessively count kinds of days. One of us would remember another version of a story about the other. We would sleep and dream. We are only inside this or that house. We would have an extra room this time. We would dream the same or a complementary thing. We'd wander about this isolation, we would eventually begin to dance with our daughters. We would change to become less lost to the rest we hadn't seen, for all love's blinding. We would still lose nothing. It's the ribbons of her hair. So when I write of love, I write of binding referendums, bankruptcy intent, industrials, utilities and sales, the petitions of a citizens group, transportation, births, corrections, the downtown mall, the toy fund, the predictions of the meteorologist, hearing aid discounts, oil price increases, ice fishing, diplomatic ties with China, an exploiting oil depot in Rhodesia, a controversial nuclear physicist, South Africa's resources of chrome and Russia's stores of platinum and tin, intercontinental ballistic missiles, Mexican oil, student assemblies, mobile homes uprooted by strong winds, book sales, Chris Everett's engagement, the uses of trees on the banks of reservoirs, the victory of the Cleveland Cavaliers and how the Sabres beat the Flames. I write of artists, auto technicians, babysitters, bookkeepers, childcare workers, companions, conference managers, cooks, dental assistants and receptionists, designers, electricians, English teachers, hairdressers, maintenance men and women, medical secretaries, mold makers, night clerks, nurses, oil burner service technicians, program directors, programmer trainees, public health nurses, registered nurses, secretaries, ski salesmen and saleswomen, substitute teachers, waitresses and waiters. I write of bribery and surgery, changes in the sentencing of criminals, the plan to change garbage to industrial steam, the Pope's speech about his first trip, jet hijackings, price raises, recessions, the People's Temple hit list, the findings of the House Assassinations Committee, a high-level mission to Taipei, Taiwan, new federal oil industry regulations, freed North Korean political prisoners, the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty, the tree warden, the windstorm, the ice, a selectors meeting, disco dancers, a recipe for pineapple coffee wreath, a consultant to a toy manufacturer, Victorian dollhouses, the art of wood carvers, the extradition of a former FBI spy, a Colombian novelist, human rights groups, a singing fairy, red and silver foxes, drugs to lower the level of cholesterol, discrepancies in reports of a mid-air crash, marriages, inquiries, public notices, the financial default of the city of Cleveland, inflation, the OTB simulcast bid, the defeat of the Knicks by the Hawks, Army allegedly breaking recruiting rules, the Nets lost to the Rockets, King's arrest for drunk driving and cocaine, Rick Barry's outburst of anger at the fans, minimum wages, apartheid, the United Nations, inflation, widespread default on bank loans, the fight at the meeting of the Women's Bank, the gasoline tax plan, dictaphone stock gains, the merger of Continental Phone with Executone, Napoleon's eclairs, tarts and torts, reborn Christians, women in the JCs, the Council on Aging, protesting teachers, a nuclear power plant, high school violence, the inventor of earmuffs, free ski lessons, speeding, drunken driving and accidental deaths, carolers, a graphics firm, window paintings, air pollution admission, foreclosures, a report of missing gold, gangs, crashes, frauds, bomb buildings, the crisis in Iran, information from the surface of Venus, a bus hit by a train, remade movies, a papal message censored in Poland, the murder of a Basque militant leader, collages, operas, stages, the soft shoe, romantic films, the writers of Superman, Clint Eastwood with a monkey, bad plots, old jazz musicians, Russian body mime, 2 Soviet films, expensive restaurants, RKO, MGM, progressive rock experimentation, Japanese architecture, chamber music, auctions, Andy Warhol and Red Grooms, a lost anarchist novelist, contract bridge, biographies, the Bible, documentaries, cosmology, and the Balinese dance. Bernadette.
Wow, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
I think you just turned that into my favorite catalog in the book. That was.
It's a great Whitmanian sort of list.
It is, and you found the rhythm in it in your reading. Thank you. Y'all, Becca Claver is in the house. Becca.
Hi guys, my camera's broken, I guess. When it does this, I need to restart my computer and come back, which I don't think I should do right now, but I'm here. Hi.
Hi. Well, if Bernadette Mayer is the mother of us all, Becca Claver is the mother of the Midwinter Day readings of us all. Anyway, Becca, we're so glad you joined us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Midwinter Constellation?
Oh, sure. Hi guys. Yeah, sorry you can't see me right now, but I will tell you about this book, Midwinter Constellation, that I wrote with 31 other poets 3 years ago today. We wrote it on the 40th anniversary of Midwinter Day. While a bunch of marathon readings like this were happening all over in person. Remember that. And we decided we would write into 6 Google Docs named after the 6 parts of the book. So dreams, morning, noontime, afternoon, evening, night. And so we were all typing in these Google Docs at the same time or copy pasting into them. So we got to see sort of the poems being formed as they happened. And then at the end of that process, we were sort of just doing it for like an activity to do on that day. And then at the end of that process, I put it all in a big document together, and it was 88 pages long. So I realized that we had written a book, and then I began the kind of like slow half-assed process of trying to get that book published, like by occasionally posting on Facebook, hey, anybody want to publish this book? And one of my publishers, Black Lawrence Press, the editor said, I'll take a look at it. So I sent it to her, and then like 6 months later, she got back to me and said she wanted to publish it, and it's coming out next month. So very exciting.
That is incredibly exciting, and thank you so much. Have you been popping in and out of readings across the country?
Yeah. Sadly, some of the readings were going to be in person, and they've been getting canceled because of Omicron. So you all were wise to plan this virtually. And but there was a big marathon reading on Saturday that I was part of, and Bernadette's family was helping to run that. So like her daughters, Sophia and Marie, who are in the book, are like at the reading. And they always give Marie, when they do these marathon readings, they always give Marie the part in the library where she has a tantrum. They like make her read that part, which is very funny because she's a toddler, you know, having a tantrum. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you so much. Really
Thank
appreciate you popping in. So let's go on to our next reader. Our next reader is Joanne James, who studied at the University of Iowa and now in exile from Santa Cruz is living in Eugene, Oregon. So we have someone from Connecticut and someone from Oregon zooming in. She's been a Hebrew student and a yoga therapist, always a dreamer, a philosopher, a poet. Thank you, Joanne, for joining us.
Hi. Yeah, I'm so glad to be a part of this. I'm an outsider poet, and so the experiments have been a big part of my life. I've had them over my desk for 30 years. And I'll share 4 that I just picked at random. Systemically derange the language. Read a novel backwards. Explore the possibility of lists, puzzles, riddles, and the possibilities of synesthesia. So those are just some that I thought to share. I'm going to start on page 102. And it's in this part, we're going to learn that existence is generous and frenzied. Ice on the trees is lit by streetlights. There's no moon yet. I slip because I'm racing by now for fear. Will I ever get home? What is reading and writing? This pledge to get to the desk which opens. It's a piece of wood like a boat, carved and cut and hinged and screwed to hold up the weight of my hands and arms, the typewriter and the beer. I have a mirror. I'm between two windows, which makes it so cold I have to wear a down vest when I write. I'm lucky to have one. Wagner felt he had to wear satin dressing gowns in order to compose. I'm ashamed that death obsesses me. But death is just the usual. The obsessiveness is something I won at poker, where I'm remembering what's been played so I can play my hand so no one ever dies. How preoccupying is the wish to include all or to leave all out? Some say either wish is against a poem or art. I'm asking, is it an insane wish to be besieged, beset with, to have to sit with, to be harassed, obsessed, to be possessed or ruled by? I am confused by fear, perfection and love, this poem, order, mourning, vigilance and beer and cigarettes and directness or clarity, words, truth, or writing, or the sublime. Every day, these apologies are what they call under control. I've no respect for their repetitious logic, and though I'm obsessed with keeping track of where you are in the house or out of it, I rarely clean it thoroughly. Having gotten older, I'm obsessed with how I look, but I don't pay attention to it either. The structure of the past has always given me the feeling that as long as things are okay, there's a rhythm to that which chances are won't be broken. But once something awful happens, then you're in for it as it doesn't fit. That's why I like recovering, and I'm always doing it. But when I think each time I write a line, I know someone I know won't approve of it. I begin to wonder about my mother. My mother thought it was opals that brought bad luck. Many people then used to say, people die in threes. My mother said, even if you try to get rid of an opal, it will bring you trouble. Lucky Chaucer said, I have great wonder, be this light, how I can live. I was going to tell about garbage and how taking it down to the yard ought to be a lucky pleasure, at least compared to any other place I've taken garbage down to. But like recovering from an illness or grief and rejoicing for a while in a new ordinary way of being, and then forgetting you were ever sick or aggrieved, pleasure without any change becomes a chore. Though in some old hat division of labor, to change the subject, Lewis has become so good at dealing with it. I mean the garbage. And I do cook the dinners, but what I meant to say was just the way it's impressive and new to visit friends who surprise you by being attentive and fastidious to one thing and not another. And I wish then to imitate them for a while, because it seems there might be something to it. So I wish I was more like the young woman the paper said today. I love this part. The paper said today was confused. She hijacked a plane in an attempt to free the same prisoner her mother was killed trying to free in another hijacking. I guess I'm already a little like her. The paper said the prisoner was her mother's lover, and he'd convinced the girl he was her father, though she had no way of knowing. In the hijacking, she became exhausted and lost her stubborn will to keep the passengers prisoner on the plane. And when she was arrested in what the papers called her alleged attempt, she was alone, and there's a picture of the girl on the arms of the police before the cold Illinois photographers. She's put a coat over her head. Now it's inevitable. She'll go to prison, but for a plea that a person as young as she, with all the confusion in her life, had no idea what she was doing. So animistically, I wonder sometimes if what I've got tied to my back is more like her, harmless railroad flares, than this anger of the explosion of real dynamite, which might endanger others, the innocent others who are always standing around. What in fact are they doing? Aren't they thinking enough not to be in the vicinity of a misled killer to be, like you or me? What does it look like? Lately, Lewis and I have been running out of matches. In Massachusetts, it's legal to buy strike anywheres. I'm exhausted as the girl who is not a myth. I asked Lewis for the matches and he says he ate them. Like a hungry Iranian demonstrator on the Tehran streets, shouting death to the Shah, David once convinced me I thought I had eaten my parents. To add insult to injury is a phrase that has always interested me. So I might say, when my mother got sick with a disease from which she died, she said, it was probably all our fault. Because in what they call in court our attempt to love, we had in fact punched her. I read some old writer who says to learn about life, you have to be in court or in camp. This is what obsessions are. For anyone who doesn't already know what it means, when you wash your hands, you still have yet to wash what you touched while you were beginning to wash them. And in the end, there's no end but forgetting, or to die in a frenzy of unremitting love, or take heroin, or keep a stash of it for dying, like the Antarctic explorers, or like double agents in movies, or even plain soldiers, or emotions jaded hijackers. Though freezing to death is said to be euphoric, and Scott wrote 12 letters while he died at the pole, but not like the people in Guyana who died of cyanide and Kool-Aid, in bubonic plague-type contortions on the bodies of their children. Wait, I thought I was going to talk about reading and writing, and not the desire to renew love to life in proportion to obsession by endless fucking, to reveal in Yokon Town we write all night. Not that it's natural or even known about, just to fill up some space, as existence is generous and frenzied, and to alight in a certain spot outside. To write like a bird migrating or returning, this town is now a feeding station, as it once was just a tavern or an inn on the road between two places, more well known. Now the space is filled. What of overpopulation? We don't pretend to die, but we write invisibly, hoarding our time and cherishing our family. We don't even want to be famous, but we do hope to survive. We meet in the hallway, which becomes the road between the rooms in which we write. We publish books in a magazine, United Artists. We sell our letters. We apply for grants. Lewis's parents send us $150 every month, which is enough for food. Writing is a need, and when there's time, a pleasure. Living together on the schedules of babies in the country's luxury. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that, Joanne. So Sarah's up next to introduce Lo.
I apologize. Thank you so much, Joanne. That was a beautiful reading. I wanna reiterate that if you're watching along with us live, there's the link to donate there in that chat to Bernadette's fund for her cancer treatment, for her hopeful retirement. And also, if you want to check out her book for free on Google Books or at your local bookstore, those links are in the chat there too. And a fun addition to that, we also have a link to pre-order Midwinter Constellation. So our final reader of the night is Lo Whittington, and I feel really excited to know that Lo has been introduced to Bernadette Mayer, because I don't know Bernadette. A lot of these people have either an intimate relationship with Bernadette Mayer's work or understand who she is as a human being. I don't. Only an amateur relationship with Midwinter Day, with those writing experiments, which are also in the chat. Highly recommend those. But if I could pick anyone who I've watched their writing develop, and whose personality I just find good to be around, I would think that Lo's writing and personality match Bernadette Mayer's pretty well. And I felt so delighted and honored to get to know Lo as a writer and watch her work develop. So Lo, I am excited to hear you read.
Click the wrong one. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for that. Yes, I feel like, along with you, a happy neophyte to the work of Bernadette Mayer. I'd like to read from sort of the end of 115 to the close, because it's just sort of, it really captivated me in terms, I was glad to be the last reader. I would love to have gone through those lists, because they just, when I read them out loud, they just sort of, they were amazing. So I strongly encourage you to do that. But I'd like to just read from 115 to the end if I could. I would close my red eyes like copper and watch you by the atomic clock, to have the luxury to love, at least in theory, indivisibly for a time in the sweetest exchanges, as if the world were not enraged. You go out for cigarettes, as if love is not the food of those of us satisfied enough to write, to lend urgency, pleasure, to sing, to celebrate, to inspire, to reveal. You put on your gotten shoes and coat in an image, and you say you will be right back. While you're out, love is stored in intensest house, this cave of it. We go too fast, switched from the speed of variegated love, writings married and fallen in with family, though it's more exhausting to love, to write, than to pursue what might have been described about the past as being fast. Sometimes we feel like fools, lunatics, paranoid hermits having manic flights with nothing coming of it. No invitations to cocktails or tea with the whole American Indian nation, no request to write a column for the Post, no demands for words or for occasions, for public celebrations, or for mourning, for invocations, for grace, for change. But each night, craving any sweet joy, we still hope to live a long time. Hurry, you say, and we love to hurry, but not to speed up the night, to be rushed, to be kissed, to be irrationally married to words and produce wildness like a child or two. Not grown up yet, perfection, a genius, not going as fast as the speed of the past again, where everyone is thought to be another to this day, like a letter we never forgot about. We run from place to answer it. Love is coveted. We have no need of the commandments, alone in the house among the secrets we still work to tell. I thought I was going to write a story of my theories tonight, not this desirous essay on art and home, this alarming dictionary of reformist love. Is it safe to say, knowing my notebook? The moon is coming up. I have something to do with that. Tonight, the Shah of Iran is not watching his 40-inch TV, and what might be the dread implications of overwhelming power has become a confusion of the magic wishes of everyone and the titillating knowledge of almost everything, lost before the complicated stories of dreams. where the moment is supreme, so joint with the past, found in awakening to love of rearranging this world as best at random translated by the eyes of ice. To a detail of truth, something is discovered. We wait to see what happens. We hope it's not a war or suffering, and that the women will shake off the veil in the myriad future of our still revolutionary munificent dreams, our lust for surprise, benefiting us like the sun, like the supplicating weather we fear, may suddenly change from what it is to another ice age, but not before the climate warms undetectably, forcing us all to move to the moon. There we gather supplies in airtight containers, force ideas from dreams to develop the craft of sleep, keep in touch with what's happening, wonder at nature, emergencies, extreme heat, cold, and unassailably new beauty, births, unusual time exposures of the earth, intercourse, sex, copulation, fucking. I think I wrote this in the dark. There's a light in my eyes afterwards by chance, like a family. That dumb street light, like the moon, shines in my one window out of 9 in the house, with its green, white town pinkish light, rich in ultraviolet and actinic rays. And with my eyes, I'm reading a paper on us fucking in mercury vapor. I found I was finding another position for the diaphragm, like the curtain, like the moon's oval pebbles, under the exciting microscope of the Western world. I speak out loud against it. Other lights in the town might be broken by accident or widespread vandalism, but they're too high and look like Christ on the cross in the hands of the eye's fluorescent fish, like a talent unspoilt and queer. To be me is to be queer, sleep after death, its modesty deriving what from the eyes of the immodest living is offended at the cost of a ruinous leaving. Well, I have to close them. This paid incandescent light is like the vigil of a virgin, last to tell before my eyes I'll end. From dreams I made sentences, then what I've seen today, then past the past of afternoons of stories like memory, to seeing as a plain introduction to modes of love and reason, then to end, I guess, with love, a method to this winter season. Now I've said this love is all I can remember of midwinter day, the 22nd of December. Welcome, sun, at last with thy softer light that takes the bite from winter weather and weaves the random cloth of life together and drives away the long black night. Yay. Ta-da, done. Thank you, everyone. This was great.
Thank you, Lo, for bringing it home so beautifully. It's been amazing for us to gather like this in community, and it feels very Midwinter Day and very Bernadette Mayer that we've done this. To paraphrase her, I feel like we've had the luxury to, at least in theory, indivisibly, for a time, have the sweetest exchanges as if the world were not enraged. Brian, let me toss it over to you. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you to all of our fantastic readers. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. Thanks especially to Becca for joining us and for all the work that she does in promoting Bernadette's work, and just being a poetry champion for so many things, and just being a terrific poet herself. Please support Bernadette Mayer, because she has supported all of us. If you've ever written a poem, if you've read a poem in like the last 40 some years, then that part of that is probably thanks to her in a little bit. And if you haven't, just want to reiterate, go find those experiments, go write something, go surprise yourself. I'm sure that you will. I've watched it happen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times with students of all ages and shapes and sizes. Go participate in her vision because it's a beautiful place to be. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. We'll see you at the next thing that we do, probably online, the way things are going. Take care, everybody. Vaya con Dios. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.